Hey guys, welcome back to the Greenback Voyage podcast. I'm your host, Shravan, and with me, of course, as always, is Joel.
Hey guys, I'm co-host here. I would like to welcome a new addition to the Greenback Voyage team, Krishna Dewala.
Thank you. I'm appreciative for the opportunity. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so it's going to be three co-hosts from now on. And I think, Shravan, you want to introduce to the topic we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, so with Biden's, I guess, aggressive fiscal policy in the past couple months, right now what he's planning about $4 to $5 trillion injection into the economy in various measures. We're thinking about discussing some of the effects, long-term and short-term, this could have on the economy, as well as hopefully some historical backing on those numbers. But first, I think we should start off with Biden's $2 trillion stimulus plan that was passed and is now going out to families, corporations. That was passed in March, I believe. I just want to know kind of your thoughts on it. I think we can start off with Krishna.
So my belief on the entire stimulus policy and the constant cash injection by Biden is not a very good policy. And here's why. In any situation, if you artificially pump a government in times of recovery, sure, in the short term you're going to be fine and it expedites recovery, but in the long term you're going to see grievous inflation effects, right? And now with the $2 trillion stimulus check, the $4 trillion infrastructure plan, and past stimulus checks, over a significant amount of money has been pumped into the U.S. government. And if you take the total dollars reserves in the past 10 years in the global economy, a tenth of that has been printed just in 2020, right? So when we take a look at those numbers, I believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see extremely high inflation rates, and we're also going to see unstable demand in an economy because people are not going to be able to react to such drastic price changes, and it honestly might trigger another crash, is what I feel.
Okay, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know who Carl Icahn is, right?
How could we not?
Yeah, so I think it goes to he's also like Krishna, he has the same viewpoint. Basically what he's saying is that every time period or there's like a cycle for debt, and he's saying that within the next 2 decades there's going to be a huge debt crisis, and there's going to be a complete devaluation of the dollar, and I think this happened during the World War era, and he's predicting that this would happen the same, and especially with the increased aggressive fiscal activity in the economy.
I completely agree with him.
No, I mean, this is absolutely true. I mean, if you take the year 2020, right, just think about the amount of money that was printed by the Fed and put into the economy. I mean, we have to ask the obvious question: can the economy, sustain this amount of injection of capital and without economic activity, right? Most of the people are still at home. We have not gone back to the level of economic activity that we've had pre-pandemic, and we had the surge of money that was printed into the economy. So will this be sustainable for the following decade? And that's the big question. And I do agree with Krishna when it comes to inflation, and we've kind of seen it. I mean, the past 2 months, right? Especially in the equities market, when tech stocks had this huge correction, and the treasury yields were rising. So will we go to a 5% inflation or 4%? I don't think it will be that extreme. I think the government at this point, where how the economy is structured and with the Fed's backing, to be honest, I don't think we'll see like a huge inflationary period. I think like the current situation is gone past that. We won't see extreme levels of inflation, but we will see some type of inflation that will put constraints on the economy and consumer spending. So that's, and going back to the stimulus package, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. I also agree with Krishna. I think it was definitely unnecessary, or maybe we could have cut it down to less than $1 trillion, because at that point we were already recovering. We had job growth that was at pre-pandemic levels. So to have, $2 trillion of money injected in the economy just like that, to me that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm more, I guess, liberal than you both. That just might be due to my nature of how social wealth should be divided. But I think, in my opinion, if you look at historical, policies and all that, I don't know, I'm just going back to FDR and seeing what his policies were like. And he injected a huge ton of money into the economy, especially with Social Security, which you could say is sort of like UBI in sense.
Okay,
And
but
I think that,
can I say something about FDR?
sure.
Not that you brought him up. See, the thing with FDR is he injected a lot of money, I agree, but also his New Deal plan was absolutely necessary because we were in a wartime, right? It was during World War II, and the recession figures
It wasn't during World
Yeah,
War
I don't
II,
think it was,
actually, right?
yeah.
We came after we were during the Great Depression. It was 1933. World War II started in 1939, I believe.
Wasn't the New Deal not
So-
passed during the starting moments of the war?
No, it was passed during I think like during the middle part of the Great Depression.
Okay.
But we can certainly fact check.
Like, it was passed before World War II. I know that for a fact.
Okay,
but the
but-
thing is there, right? Like, he needed a huge amount of money into the economy in order to improve the way of life for Americans. That's how we've, built most of our highways today. Most of the city's infrastructure was built off that, and it provided, a good workforce for so many consumers and created businesses along the way. I think the issue comes with, why do we need another one? We've already had, I think, 3 of them. So why do we need another one? And why is it specifically targeted as well for corporations rather than for the middle class and lower class individuals? Because corporations have gotten huge bailouts in the past year. And we have the airlines bailout in March. We've had the cruise bailouts in May. We had numerous other travel accommodations bailouts in June. And then we also passed another stimulus check in December. So why, again, would they pass a stimulus bill that doesn't even focus on the individuals again? I mean, $1,400. How long can you
It's
sustain
ridiculous,
that for?
honestly.
So
'Cause
so
if-
I think what if we take the current semiconductor crisis, right? So in terms of global production for semiconductors and other chips, we currently produce or manufacture about 12% of semiconductors in the world. And most of it is done in East Asia, Taiwan, right? Taiwanese semiconductor and Samsung in South Korea. And China obviously has the economic moat for all the production when it comes to chips and things like that.
They have a
So,
direct
if
stake
you
in
look
it,
at-
actually.
Right. So if you look at what Biden's plan, most of it is money that's being injected into the manufacturing industrial side and trying to bring America to a much bigger presence in terms of making us the exporters of materials and things like that, so we can have a comparative edge over China.
But I think that should be a focus for
uh,
later time. Shouldn't the focus right now be focused on the American
Recovery.
citizens? I mean, $1,400. Do you know? I think there's a report the other day. 26% of people who were unemployed last year are still affected by unemployment this year alone.
In
Like
fact, if you look at
that's
it,
insane.
no one is saying per se that the injection of the infrastructure bill is the issue, right? The infrastructure bill proposes $4 trillion spread out into various development initiatives, right?
I thought
That's
and it's
not
over a
necessarily
period
the
of time.
issue.
It's not like in one time spend.
Yeah.
It's over a period of time.
Yeah,
so.
but the timing of that bill is the main issue, right? Because if you look at it, first we have the stimulus bill, right? Not just one stimulus bill, but we had, I think, 3 stimulus bills, and then we had 2 corporate bailouts, whether it's the airline industry and the cruise industry, right? Which is ridiculous, because first off, it goes against the values of the free market. On top of that, why do you need to bail out cruise lines, right? And if you look at the total numbers of this, it's around $9 trillion of cash injected, okay? The average amount the US government prints every year is $226 billion, right? Just in 2020 alone, we printed 9 trillion. That's around 20% of the overall US cash flow in the global economy. That's ridiculous. Okay? 22%. Okay? On top of that, we put another nail in the coffin with minimum wage hikes. Okay? Minimum wage in Virginia moved from $7 to $9.50. Why do we need so many initiatives that pump money into the economy when we don't necessarily need it? Because the direct effect of governmental spending is inflation. And in this case, it could be hyperinflation.
I don't
What do you guys think?
I don't think it'd be hyperinflation. I think it'll just be pretty high compared to previous years. I know in 2008, the government, basically did the same thing back then. They decreased rates all the way down to 0 or 0.25%.
But
But if you,
they never injected 22%
no,
of
yeah, I get that.
over USD reserves into the
Yeah,
economy. I'm just
but it
saying the
took,
number right now is ridiculous.
yeah. I think, I mean, if we're talking about the Fed more than, because the Fed was the ones who injected more money than, fiscal policy in general. So if we're talking about the Fed, I think they're doing a great job. I completely agree with their policy, for two main reasons. Their main goals aren't to reduce inflation. Their main goals are to have full employment and keep a stable economic structure. That
And
may
when we talk
include
about
that may include reducing inflation, but the main thing is with inflation rates so low over the past decade,
Mhm.
the issue comes with what happens if we induce a crash. Let's say in March of 2020, we had a crash then, right?
Yeah.
And the Fed reduced its rates to 0. But then what happens if we, just had another crash then? Like due to some unforeseen condition. Like the Fed isn't going to
Okay,
go
but
super negative interest rates, yet they can't also, print as much money into the economy. So for the Fed to increase the amount of money into the economy to, make inflation go to 3-4%, it gives them a better opportunity to control the money supply in the future, which I totally agree with. Those are the main
see,
two
but
reasons they're doing it.
the thing is, the United States boasts a 3% inflation rate consistently for the past 10 years,
No,
right?
no, they
Now,
haven't.
no, they have.
No,
If
right?
you average
It's
out the
no,
overall
no.
inflation rate in the past 10 years, the United States had one of the lowest inflation numbers compared to
No,
other
most
developed
of it,
neighbors.
okay, there's been 2 years that it's above, 2 or 3 years it's above 3%, but mostly it's been 1 to
No, I'm
2%
talking about
range.
average. I'm not saying sure every individual year the rates might
No, I
vary,
know. I'm
right?
just
But I'm
saying
saying that
outliers.
consistently it's been around 3%,
I don't
right?
think it's around 3%. I think
For the past 10 years?
No.
In the
Or
past 10
what
years,
time
yeah.
frame?
I
I would
don't
say in the
think you're
past
right
10
about
years it's
that.
been around 3%.
No, I don't think so. I think it's been way.
I mean, even current levels in 2020 and 2021, I think it's not even at the Fed target of
Yeah,
2.4
I think
or
it's
something,
way
right?
lower than your. I think it's around
Yeah, I think it has to be
2%.
lower.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
touch below
probably around 2%.
2%, in my opinion.
Okay, that's even better in that case. So I got my numbers wrong, but that further bolsters my point, okay? So we've been boasting around a 2% inflation rate. That's extremely
Mm-hmm.
low compared to our competitors, okay? Now all of a sudden we're injecting huge amounts of cash and we're increasing minimum wage, okay? Let's talk about the effects of minimum wage a little too. So now at a $7 minimum wage, if a company employs 100 people, all right? So first of all, minimum wage doesn't even affect large companies because most large companies, when they hire people, they're hiring educated individuals who don't fall under the bracket of minimum wage, right? Now, when smaller businesses who are actually employing people with minimum wage and franchises, right? If
Mm-hmm.
they were hiring 100 people at $7 an hour and each person worked 10 hours a week, that's $7,000 of expenditure per month, okay? Now all of a sudden, if minimum wage is $9.50, their expenditure per month increases by $2,500, okay? And these are very small numbers because in most cases they employ a lot larger workforce, okay? So now this 2.5K hike in expenditure is a lot, especially in a pandemic time for small businesses who've already been affected by lower demand. So now not only is their hiring demand going down, they're also more likely to lay off workers because they can't afford paying 100 workers $9.50. So they'll probably lay off like a couple of workers, which is further increasing unemployment, right? So I would say that Biden's minimum wage initiative was one of the worst timed initiatives of all time. And on top
See,
of that,
another thing is, during his presidential campaign, he was advocating for a $15 minimum wage,
which is even worse.
At the end of the day, it actually collapsed, right? Even like supporters, like progressive members of Congress, actually didn't have it didn't have enough support to push for a $15 minimum wage. It ended up most of the Democrats didn't support for it, and obviously 50%, like 100% of Republicans didn't support for it. So I think it's a political issue, right? They knew that it was going to get killed, and they were advocating for the $15 minimum wage for political points. So
I think that's like a different topic because we can talk about that forever. How Democrats screw over the like the poor people.
Wage,
yeah. I mean, they make so many promises.
Affected.
Yeah, I mean, they make so many promises throughout the election cycle, and then they don't do shit afterwards. I mean, that's for.
And the thing is,
it's ridiculous.
A lot of the people below the poverty line right now are kind of addicted to welfare. So let's talk about unemployment, okay? When COVID first hit, there was a new unemployment plan where people who were fired or unemployed due to COVID reasons would get $600 a week, okay? It was an increased unemployment plan. After a while, they trickled it down to $450 per week, okay? That's the current unemployment that people are getting due to pandemic reasons, okay? I find this ridiculous because we should not be responsible. The government should not be responsible to funnel welfare at the unemployed at this time, because first off, it reduces the demand for them to enter the workforce. Okay, $450 a week is a lot larger than minimum wage per week. Okay, on top of that, it's sustainable. People can live off that $450 at a basic level. Okay, so the fact that we're pumping huge amounts of unemployment at the lower class is not sustainable on top of all this cash injection into the economy, because first off, we're not inclining these people to join the workforce. On top of that, what happens when they're off unemployment, right? They don't have a sustainable way to survive after that because they're kind of addicted to it right now. For the past like 9 months, they've been surviving off unemployment.
See, Krishna, look, first of all, I think we don't have the experience that these people are going through because, we come from middle to upper class families. We don't thankfully, I mean, we should be grateful that we didn't have to experience the unfortunate circumstances that these people experience, right? And also, I mean, this is an unforeseen negative externality that has happened, right? This isn't something that occurs common in our country or in the world, right? COVID is once in a century type, or even like
once in a lifetime
type thing.
Once in a lifetime, I would say, yeah.
Right. So, at that point, you need some type of government intervention, and I think we all can agree that we really needed government intervention at that time.
I'm not disagreeing with the government.
The disagreement is where how much should the government really intervene, right? So for unemployment benefits, I mean, it's not going to happen forever. I think they probably will end it. And hopefully, I think most of us don't agree with the UBI, and that's probably like the direction that Democrats are probably going to push for, is to turn the unemployment benefit into some type of UBI system where, they'll start to make it a fixed thing where the unemployment benefits will turn into universal basic income.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I kind of see that happening in the next 2 years, to be honest.
That's another point I'm very concerned about with the Democratic government. Because let's take a look at UBI, right? Let's take a look at Andrew Yang's definition of UBI. Andrew Yang, when he was running for president for 2020, had UBI as one of his poster policies, right? Where he promised every single citizen of the United States around $12,000, which he could fish out of tax by taxing the 1%. Okay? So the issue with the UBI plan is if you give every single citizen $12,000 as basic income, that's effectively giving everyone $0, right? Because if everyone has $0, everyone's poor. If everyone has $12,000, everyone is still poor. because now the market has adjusted to everyone having $12,000 instead of $0. So prices are also going to adjust to that price level, that income level, right? It's effectively giving everyone $0 in a glorified fashion.
I
And
don't
on
think it will
top of that,
be.
you're putting your government into more debt.
I don't know. I don't think it'll be as bad as you're saying. Like, if you give everyone $1,200, it's basically zero. I think it will help out the economy. I just think that entitlements in general are supporting Americans too much. And if we want to live in a more capitalist society that America boasts that we have to kind of start slowing down. I mean, we could go on for Social Security and how that's killing us as well.
We're moving with the current amount of cash injection. I feel like we're moving towards a more socialistic approach with the government.
See, the fundamental issue I see with UBI is the first word, universal. I don't think most of the population needs an income where you give like what 10K or 12K per year. I mean, that's like $2.5 trillion that the government would have to spend every year, and I think that's like 1/8 of the GDP. So for the universal aspect is the fundamental problem. I mean, I don't think you or I don't think we need 12K or
students should not be earning that much money, because first of all,
and it's also going to shrink the workforce, right?
Yeah,
the labor force.
Yep.
Right, because it's going to be viewed as an alternative to work, right? You're going to take the incentive out for you to get off and go and work, right? Because if the government's going to give you money for every month and that will cover your basic needs, what's the point of going out to work or doing something productive or trying to, educate yourself to do something to get a better job when you're getting welfare, right? It completely, it takes the incentive for you to go out and work, and that's gonna be, it's not gonna disrupt the economy, but it's a fundamental flaw for society itself, right? You gotta promote, going and working. You gotta promote, education, and if you just create a welfare state where the government's gonna protect you, and I think that's gonna destroy society and the fundamental way where we approach, making a living.
Yeah, that's why
it does have economic effects, because if you think about it, you're shrinking the labor force, right? So first off, your unemployment numbers are going to go through the roof, right? On top of that, you're going to have a lot of people who are still begging for welfare, but it's no longer there because they've adapted to a welfare state, which is not the most sustainable situation that the government's put us in. Okay, so that's the fundamental issue. What you just stated is the fundamental issue with most plans that have been shipped out in the past year, whether it be minimum wage, whether it be a potential UBI initiative, whether it be multiple stimulus checks, whether it be cruise line bailouts. All of these policies move to one thing, right? Inflation and demotivating the workforce to find a job. Even with the renting, the rent delays where people don't have to pay rent for a certain amount of time, like after that time expires, where's the money going to come from for these guys to pay off their rent, right? Now they're not paying 1 month of rent, they're paying multiple months of rent at once. Where's that money coming from? We're literally moving into a situation of crisis without even knowing.
Yeah, I think for minimum wage, just going back to that, all I think is like it should just be increasing by inflation rate. Like every year, dependent on the inflation rate set by the Fed or the Treasury Department or whatever, minimum wage will increase by that much.
I actually believe a very conservative policy of no minimum wage. All right, and let me explain myself before you guys holler at me. But the reason why I think minimum wage is not necessary is because in a capitalistic market, which America is a very primarily capitalistic market, or used to be at least, is the market already knows what people deserve, okay? And in most cases, it makes sense. Like, for example, a software developer deserves a certain amount of income, like $80,000 for starting, okay? A McDonald's worker deserves like $11 an hour in Northern Virginia. A McDonald's worker in like maybe Blacksburg deserves like $8 an hour in Virginia, okay? The market already has a rate where they can afford labor. Now, putting a institution such as minimum wage kind of restricts companies' freedom to hire people, because now I can't hire people anymore at $8 an hour, which was what I could afford previously.
Not necessarily, because the reason I say it should go along with inflation is inflation, is determined by how much the price of goods increases over a year. So what you'd want to do is, as the price of goods rises, you'd also want to increase the wage so that the standard of living for them is the same. Now, if you don't institute any minimum wage, what will happen is, big corporations, which is a whole nother issue on its own, but corporations like Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Apple, maybe not, but the other companies, they might just get together and say, we're not going to hire any software developers, above this
minimum wage doesn't apply to that workforce, right? Like the
No, it
educated
doesn't.
workforce
But
has nothing with minimum
that's how
wage.
it kind of worked in the past, right? That's why we kind of implemented, because we kind of saw the price of goods was rising so fast, and yet minimum wage was, minimum wage in a market type of sense was not moving anywhere, and so their standard of living got worse and worse, while corporate heads at the top 0.1% were still getting more money and more money. So that's why they implemented the minimum wage at first. But the issue
The
is,
government
it's just
the
at a set
government
price.
has increased the minimum wage in the past, right?
Yeah, but it's at a
They've done
set
that in the
price.
past,
It should.
but our unemployment rate has not really improved due to that fact.
I think
Like
unemployment rate has
unemployment didn't go
improved.
down because of our minimum wage policies. They went down because of our investment into certain fields, right? And tax cuts that also provided in previous Republican rule, right? But I'm saying minimum wage almost never directly impacts unemployment numbers. In fact, in most cases,
I don't think it should
goes
impact unemployment
reduces
numbers.
it. And I'm just saying
I think
there's more
you should have
potential for it to go
you should
down.
have a floor. You should definitely have a floor for in terms of minimum wage.
Yeah,
to take it out and actually in the current situation where companies are becoming increasingly monopolistic, right? Amazon, Facebook, these guys, they're increasingly controlling government, right? If you look at last year's lobbying numbers, Facebook and Amazon were leading the chart. So if you're not going to have some type of government intervention in the market where you set a price floor for minimum wage and things like that, it's gonna I think it's gonna lead to monopolies and overall taking advantage of the labor force.
Yeah, because
Okay, but let's look at
you
the
gotta
other
have-
side of that. Okay, let's look at the other side of that situation. So let's say, okay, in the first place, right? Most of the companies, while they appear to be monopolistic, are not truly monopolistic. For example, Amazon has multiple divisions and is branched into multiple industries, right? We think it's a monopoly because they have a significant amount of power on policy and significant amount of power on markets. That's why we think they're monopolistic. But who gave them that power? Okay? We gave them that power. As citizens, we depended on Amazon to provide certain services, and they're still providing those quality services, right? So while we say that Amazon does have some tremendous amount of power, we still depend on them. And in the situation that our argument of Amazon having too much power is heard by the government and is regulated, right? Let's say the government passes some sort of regulation towards Amazon. What's going to happen due to that regulation? These companies can't perform at the top quality they are performing at now. So things like Amazon 2-day delivery might be hindered. Services like Amazon Prime might become more expensive, right? So there's a lot of negative effects that we never take into account because these companies are not true monopolies in the sense of like Rockefeller's oil industry, right?
But that's because of government regulations right now. But if we didn't have any of those government regulations, we don't know where they would be. We don't know how far they would take to make sure they produce as much profit as they can. I just think they should have a floor and just increase by inflation, just to raise the standard of living. Unemployment, that's a whole nother issue on its own, and that deserves, injecting money into the economy. But just for making sure the standard of living for the average American citizen stays the same throughout the course of its life, it should just increase with inflation. That's what I believe.
I'm not saying that the policies that are being placed right now are bad. I'm just saying the timing could not be worse.
Yeah.
Because we're already trying to recover, and all these policies can hinder demand in the workforce, causing unemployment and cause inflation, which by a massive margin, which you guys don't seem to agree with. But I feel like because we haven't seen such a monumental printing of money, right? We haven't we can't really cite history because in no point in history have we printed 22% of overall US dollar reserves. right? So we don't know exactly. It's hard to predict really what's gonna happen, not just to the U.S. economy, but the global economy, because the U.S. dollar is what's gold and oil is priced in as well, right? So we might see a monumental shift from the US dollar to maybe an alternative currency as well.
Yeah,
It's hard to
okay.
predict. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think the U.S. government is incredibly powerful, and to be honest, they're not going to let that happen. I don't think any cryptocurrency is going to take over the U.S. dollar in terms of a global reserve currency. I think the U.S. dollar is going to stay, and it's possible that maybe the U.S. government could do something like a USD coin, like what China is doing with their, you know how they started their own cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
So I think the U.S. Could do that as well. And something is interesting is, all the drug dealers that do transactions with cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
So the thing with that is when they get their stuff seized, it's rumored that the U.S. government takes in the cryptocurrency as well. And some insiders are saying that the U.S. government could have up to 25 to 33% of the entire Bitcoin float.
Wow,
So
that's massive news, because if that's true,
yeah, I kind of went off a tangent there, but that's interesting to point out.
I mean, I wasn't aware of that actually. I never knew that was happening, and I don't. Is it confirmed? Is it like 100% true?
I don't think it's confirmed.
'Cause
I don't
if you-
think the government would ever
It's not.
say
It's
that.
not. No. It's not. Yeah. It's not confirmed. But I would say like for something this big for Bitcoin to rally and gain this much of an exposure, I think the U.S. government is gonna have an interest to have some type of control over it. Because China, if you look at what China is doing, they have warehouses of miners, of cryptocurrency miners. So, because this is a completely new space, and I think the U.S. government would want to have some type of strong foothold in this.
I feel like the
It's
U.S.
just the only
government-
option.
I really feel like for this year at least, the U.S. government should really hold off a bit and let the free market do its thing, because we've already seen a massive influx of cash dropped into the
See,
economy.
the thing
in
is,
2020.
we don't live in a. I don't think we live in a free market economy with what's going on with companies like Amazon, who's just grown too big. You can't. I don't think it's possible you can break up Amazon or Facebook at this point.
It's impossible
They've
because
kind
you
of
can't even find
they've kind of
legal
become
grounds.
monopolies,
Yeah.
right? Amazon's a monopoly.
Oh.
Google's a monopoly. Google controls
Facebook's a
95% of the
monopoly.
search engine
Google
results.
is a monopoly.
Facebook.
I would not say Amazon's
Yeah,
a monopoly.
I would say Amazon's a
Oh,
monopoly.
I mean, no, dude. Amazon has 80% of e-commerce search results.
You know what? Amazon.
They have the world's
yeah.
largest
I
distribution.
mean, whose fault is that?
They have the
It's
world's
not-
largest distribution
it's-
service.
It's not Amazon's
When it comes to
fault.
when it comes to cloud service, Amazon is controlling 70% of the market. Azure, Google Cloud is nowhere close to where Amazon is. They're in every single industry when it comes to, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we've been saying this, right? They're in every single industry. They have control. They're starting to grow in every single industry because their services kind of shoulder on each other, right? Amazon's e-commerce is powered by AWS. Their distribution network, it powers a bunch of other things. When the new pharmaceutical deliveries, they have the distribution network, so they can do that easily.
But
they can take on
take a
GoodRx,
look at
right?
this
Things like that.
situation, okay? Is it Amazon's fault that they created such a beautiful product? Like, let's take a look at AWS,
No, it's
right?
it's definitely not Amazon's fault, but it is entirely
No,
the
but
government's
yeah, the
fault for
point of a
allowing things-
monopoly. I don't know. Amazon's plan right now over the past decade, if you look at it, their profits should be marginally higher than it is right now. But the reason it isn't is because they want to keep prices so low as to drive out further competition. That has been their goal. Investors
I mean,
have
that's
not
good
been.
for us, though. That's
No,
not
that's the
hindering the
thing.
economy.
No,
Yeah,
no. When you're trying to drive out competition, that completely defeats the purpose.
Yeah,
of
because
a
then
free
they'll
market, right?
raise the prices. The point of what's happening right now is their prices are so low, and they're trying to drive in so many consumers with so many of their platforms. I mean, they got Amazon Prime, AWS, Twitch. They're in the e-commerce. They're in pharmacy now, and no
they're
one's
in
saying
everything.
yeah, they're in everything. No one's saying anything
They're
about
going
it.
to start their own retail stores. They're
Yeah.
going to go against Walmart. I mean, even the near Lotte, they're going to start their own
I mean,
grocery.
fuck's
No,
sakes,
I'm
their
saying,
whole-
I'm
they-
saying all of this is happening because of the free market and because we allowed it to happen. For example,
Yeah,
let's take
but
a look at
that's-
AWS, right?
that's
They
the
control
thing.
I think
80% of
listen,
cloud
listen,
services.
the free market I don't think the flea market should be as glorified as it is. It's a complete so you can't go extreme to both sides. You can't have total government intervention. You can't have a total free market. You gotta find some balance somewhere.
And
right
that's
there,
what
right?
the U.S. government
So
used to be,
that's
especially during Reagan's time, where we saw the perfect balance of governments laying off from the free market and capitalism doing its thing, right? Reagan's era was a golden era for that. But now I feel like as we moved on to the 2000s, right? There's been a lot more unnecessary welfare pumped into the government rather than investments into relevant areas such as education, right? Relevant areas such as housing for poor people, right? These are much more substantial and beneficial welfare initiatives for the poor people. But we've never seen that. We've just seen trickle-down economics and just unemployment checks, which people don't know how to spend properly.
I don't want to do the whole cliche of I blame the government, but it is true. I mean, if you look at what Bernie Sanders said when he initially didn't support the second stimulus package because it was giving too much money to corporations, and he admitted that it was a mistake for supporting the first stimulus package so quickly because most of the PPE loans and all the SBA loans, they actually went to mid and large cap businesses out there. Most of the small businesses did not survive. If you go on like Yelp and read the reviews, most of the small businesses died out. And guess what happens? It creates market. All the big corporations came in and just gobbled up the market share. So, when you have things like that where Congress and the bills that are coming out openly are for corporations, I mean, at that point, what do? I mean, like I said, the last year's lobbying efforts, Facebook and Amazon led the charts. So when you have that type of situation, there's no one else but to blame the government and their negligence in this situation.
Yeah, they should have realized the monopolies at the start.
I just feel like the government should move away from a welfare state and start focusing on relevant situations. Like the infrastructure plan, I do like, right? They're investing in relevant areas of development. I feel like they should also start some initiatives on getting small businesses started in a more easier fashion. Because right now, the United States is not a very safe place for small businesses. Right? You have powerful organizations preying on you, and you have extreme regulations preventing you from entering markets, right? Especially in the airline industry. Competition can literally not start in the airline industry because of significant amount of
There's increased barriers of entry for pretty much all the industries out there. So
I really feel like the government
a direct
should
effect
focus
of
on things
COVID.
like that.
So
if you want the government to get itself involved, get involved in small businesses, because that's something that can really bolster the economy. Get involved in education because that helps poor people.
Yeah, it's like provide them with
I mean, to be honest, look, you know the whole AT&T breakup, right? Now they're more powerful than they ever were before the breakup, and that's because of government. That's because the government didn't follow up on the breakup, right? You can't, okay, I'm gonna break up all your business apart, all your subsidiaries apart, and just forget about it, right? It took them 3, 4, 5 decades to slowly acquire and gain the market share, and the government didn't have any intervention whatsoever. So hypothetically, what should happen now is they should probably start to break up Amazon. I think AWS should be a completely different company on its own, and Facebook. I think Facebook should be broken up. Google definitely should be broken up. Apple, I don't know about that, but most of the FANG stocks should definitely.
See, the thing Apple, with these companies is it's impossible
Apple is
to break
actually.
up.
I actually like Apple because they're actually like more consumer oriented. I mean, even with their new iOS update that's coming out, they're gonna give the consumer the opportunity to be to not be tracked with ads. Or not to be tracked by companies like Facebook for ads and ad targeting and things like that.
Let's see, the major issue with these companies, right, like Amazon, Facebook, Apple, the major issues with these companies is you cannot break them up on the premise of them being a monopoly, because they're not a monopoly by textbook definition, okay? So they have multiple fields and they're in every industry, but there's always competition. For example, AWS has Azure and Google Cloud and IBM's hybrid cloud.
It's not as nearly as what the competition you want. They control 60% of the cloud service.
And maybe towards the end you'll kind of understand what I'm saying, okay? So Apple, they're making major profit through their iPhones and iPads, right? But there's also competition for those products, such as the LG's bad idea, but like Samsung smartphones, okay, Samsung tablets. There's competition. What's happening is these companies have built up they have such wonderful marketing departments that the people choose to purchase these products, right? Like no one's stopping you from buying a Samsung phone. It's just majority of Americans feel that an iPhone is better. They're stuck in the ecosystem, so they want to buy an Apple phone. Majority of companies in the IT sector are not saying that they don't want to buy Azure. They're just so used to AWS, and so many of their products are built on AWS that they don't want to switch to Azure, right? That's the situation. These companies have built a dependency on their products, so we can't blame them and call them a monopoly for that. What the government should be doing is classifying these companies as their own separate like category, right? Times of change, economics change. Classify them as their own mega corporation category, something like that, and pass regulation based on that, but don't classify them as monopolies and try to break them up.
See, the thing is, like, okay, that's Apple. I don't think is a great example of monopoly, but when it comes to, you know, it's the power that you get from this, right? If you take Google, I think Google's a prime example of what a monopoly is. They have like 90 to 95% of search engine results. With the power that they have with the data and the manipulation that they can do to the user is immense, and that needs to be controlled. And the government's not doing anything to control that. And that's a big problem, right? I mean. And also, I mean, I also see the other side of you know, breaking up, because if you do follow up and break up these companies, you're also gonna make industries in China stronger, right? You're gonna make China stronger and their exposure stronger. So it's a very, very hard situation to tackle. But some you gotta have some type of control or some type of intervention on companies like these, but maybe not go to the extreme of, you know, breaking them up like AT&T, but you got to have some type of government intervention.
I think the main issue was with my man, the retard, what's his name? Ajit Pai. Yeah, the former
the
FTC
guy
who fucking like didn't he accept, you know, all of Facebook's acquisitions of Instagram, WhatsApp, and then there's a whole net neutrality thing, and he let Amazon basically like take over. Google was, you know, they acquired like some other like AI companies, and they destroyed, like, this man didn't do shit, right? He's a major reason why we're having this conversation, because they can't really break them up now. Like, what's the FTC gonna do? Oh shit, sorry Facebook, you know how we said, you know, you could have WhatsApp? Yeah, we're thinking about not having that happen anymore, if that's cool with you. Like, no, they can't do that. It all started with
at the end of the day, it's we who gave them the power, right?
Yeah,
like we gave them the power, right? And now we're complaining about us giving them having too much power, right? So it's a fallacy in itself. So what the government really should be doing is, rather than tackling these companies as monopolies, they should be like, hey, let's take a look at Amazon's revenue, okay? They're clearly making too much money. How do we redistribute this wealth in a more fair way? Boom. Whole new category of economics right there.
See, I mean, if we go back to 2009 example with the financial crisis, before the guys like Lehman Brothers collapsed, all the regional banks, 300, 400 per state, just wiped out. And guess what happened? The market share just got acquired, banks merged, and they're stronger than they were. They're more powerful than they were back in 2009. So, this whole thing about, I mean, right now the same thing is happening with COVID, right? All the small businesses got closed out, a lot of restaurants got closed out. Going back, a lot of small businesses closed out, and all these, you know, Walmart, these big guys, Amazon. They just started scooping up the market share, and they're just growing bigger and bigger. So I think we going back, I think we definitely need to do something about this. But maybe not as going as breaking up the company into smaller parts, like what we did with AT&T. That's just going to give China an open door to gain more influence on the global stage. I mean, the reason why we are a powerful country is because of these corporations and because of the power that these corporations have. So if we break them up, it's going to backfire on us, actually. But there has to be something done. There has to be some type of intervention.
It's a fine line we gotta walk.
We're approaching the end of our time slot, essentially, and basically I kind of want to just summarize our argument. So So we've all talked about multiple effects of certain recovery plans that Biden's government is instating, and I guess we all agreed that there's going to be some inflationary effects due to these plans. And some of us agreed that minimum wage is harmful. Some of us agreed that it's not. We have a lot of diverse arguments when it comes to these recovery plans, but we can all agree that there will be certain negative effects in the future, right?
Yep, definitely. About something.
There will be some consequence.
I mean, yeah.
We just gotta sit back and hope the government doesn't crash.
I mean, with the way the economy is, like, god dang, like something has to give at some point.
Yep.
But yeah. Actually, before we end, I don't know if you guys saw this fact. Did you know 26% of podcasts in the Apple Podcast apps have only produced one episode?
I actually remember hearing this fact somewhere. Not sure, but that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
26%. We're not part of that 26%, so thank God for that.
That's good.
So pretty much 1 in 4 channels out there have only made one
Yeah,
episode or one upload.
that's insane.
Yeah, looks like it.
And I'm pretty sure half the podcasts overall have 0 listeners.
It's probably just the case of passionate individuals with not enough time. You know?
Yeah, at least we're above the 50th percentile.
That's
I'm
good,
happy
that's
about
good.
that.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people listen to podcasts anyways, and people who do probably listen to Joe Rogan. So
Of course. Oh man, my man Joe Rogan. That's
What a guy.
I don't know what side he supports. But yeah.
All right, Shravan, you got
I mean, Joe Rogan. I mean, if we guys just do a little conversation on him, he's actually a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Is he? Yeah.
I think yeah, he is.
I don't know. Some
I
of
think he said
some of his arguments are very, very conservative. Like there was like
Yeah,
a Reddit debate like on it, where I don't know. He had some guy on his podcast who was like denouncing stimulus checks to individuals, and he just agreed with him.
Yeah.
And I was like,
It was the congressman with the eye cap or something.
Oh
right?
yeah, that's right. Oh,
Yeah, I forgot
God,
his name. Yeah, he made some insane, idiotic arguments against stimulus checks. His whole premise was basically that people should suffer and we should do nothing about it.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
So some people are just.
I forgot the
insane.
guy's name, but yeah.
But yeah,
I always feel like the blank check method of the government just pouring money at people, right, is not effective or efficient because a lot of people just don't know how to spend this money, and they spend it in whack ways that doesn't really help them.
Education solves all our problems.
I
Doesn't it?
know. When will the government realize that investing into education directly will solve a lot of problems?
Whenever we
poverty
have
and
world
unemployment.
peace.
Yep. Education is the ladder out of poverty.
Whenever we have world peace, that will happen. Just never.
Like, our structure of capitalism is the perfect opportunity for a poor man to become rich if he has access to good education. But the thing is, education is not evenly spread out in our country, right? And the government really needs to figure out, instead of just printing money, a better way to get everyone educated.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's another topic that we can do for a special, regarding tuition costs and education.
Oh
and things like
God, tuitions.
Definitely. And I do want to touch up on like medical insurance and topics like that as well.
Oh God, we got a
Maybe in the
lot to
future.
talk about. But I think for this episode, I think that wraps it up. It's been a long episode, fun one as well. We'll be back on this week again to do our weekly podcast. We know we've been out for a bit. But yeah, thanks again, guys, for listening in. Follow us on Spotify or YouTube, whichever platform you're listening on. And we'll see you guys next week.